The dawn of October 24, 1944, cast a hushed glow over the USS Essex, a formidable fleet carrier meticulously navigating the vast expanse of the Philippine Sea. Commander David McCampbell, then a seasoned 34-year-old air group commander, had already accumulated a staggering number of combat missions, a tally that would eclipse the entire careers of most pilots. Yet, despite his extensive first-hand experience, nothing within his impressive operational history could adequately prepare him for the extraordinary events that would unfold over the ensuing hours. The monumental Battle of Leyte Gulf was rapidly escalating, with the Imperial Japanese Navy committing virtually every remaining naval asset in a desperate, all-out assault against the encroaching American invasion forces. Urgent intelligence dispatches were inundating the command center, reporting the imminent approach of a substantial enemy strike formation directly targeting the American carrier group. Consequently, every available fighter aircraft was ordered to achieve airborne status without delay. McCampbell observed from the bustling flight deck as his pilots scrambled with purposeful urgency toward their waiting Grumman F6F Hellcats. The air around them was thick with the pungent aroma of aviation fuel and reverberated with the thunderous roar of radial engines sputtering to life. His personal aircraft, a Hellcat distinguished by the number 13 emblazoned on its fuselage and affectionately christened Mincy III in homage to his wife, stood poised for immediate action. However, a critical logistical issue emerged. Due to the frantic pace of the scramble, his aircraft's fuel tanks had not been completely replenished. While standard operational protocol mandated topping off all fuel reserves, the luxury of time was conspicuously absent. Intelligence estimated the enemy's arrival within the hour. McCampbell, faced with this stark reality, made a momentous, split-second tactical decision that would indelibly shape his legacy. He would launch immediately with his existing fuel load. His loyal wingman, Lieutenant Roy Rushing, encountered an identical predicament, and without hesitation, made the same courageous choice. What both pilots remained blissfully unaware of at that precise moment was their impending participation in what would later be recognized as one of the most astonishingly lopsided aerial engagements in the annals of military aviation. Stay with us and watch the end of the video. We will be grateful for your like and subscription. The Japanese aerial armada converging upon them comprised an estimated 60 aircraft, a diverse and formidable mix including the agile Mitsubishi A6M0 fighters, the potent Nakajima B6N torpedo bombers, and the swift Yokosuka D4Y dive bombers. These combat aircraft had been dispatched from both Imperial Japanese Navy carriers and strategically positioned land bases, forming a coordinated, desperate offensive designed to obliterate the American carrier task force, providing crucial support for General Douglas MacArthur's audacious return to the Philippines. The Japanese High Command harbored a profound understanding that the loss of the Philippines would irrevocably sever their vital supply lines to the resource-rich Dutch East Indies. This was far more than merely another skirmish. It represented Japan's final, realistic opportunity to decisively alter the trajectory of the Pacific War. Within the Combat Information Center, the relentless march of incoming enemy contacts, or bogies, was meticulously tracked on radar screens, their positions precisely marked with grease pencils on large plotting boards. Fighter director officers, with steely resolve, orchestrated the critical interception, vectoring the severely limited number of available Hellcats directly toward the escalating threat. A significant portion of the carrier's fighter complement had already been deployed on other vital missions, including sustained combat air patrols, protective strike escorts, and thorough anti-submarine sweeps. This left McCampbell and Rushing, alongside a mere 5 other intrepid fighters, to confront and blunt an attack force nearly 10 times their numerical strength. The mathematical odds were unequivocally brutal, yet McCampbell possessed inherent advantages that the Japanese had not yet fully grasped. His Hellcat represented a pinnacle of technological advancement, when juxtaposed with the Zeros he was destined to confront. And his marksmanship, honed through dozens of previous engagements, had already yielded an impressive tally of 21 confirmed aerial victories. As McCampbell's Hellcat was launched from the flight deck with a powerful surge, the sheer acceleration forcefully pressed him deep into his seat. The formidable fighter, its Pratt & Whitney R2800 engine unleashing 2,000 horsepower of unadulterated might, aggressively clawed its way toward altitude. Within a matter of minutes, he and Rushing had ascended to a breathtaking 25,000 feet, strategically positioning themselves as an aerial bulwark between the vast Japanese formation and the vulnerable American carriers below. The remaining 5 friendly fighters had already engaged disparate sections of the sprawling enemy formation, leaving McCampbell and Rushing to confront the main enemy group in solitary defiance. Through the clear expanse of his canopy, McCampbell could discern them, a colossal formation of Japanese aircraft, stretching across the sky like a menacing, deadly swarm. They maintained a relatively tight formation, brimming with confidence in their overwhelming numbers, utterly oblivious to the fact that they were on the verge of encountering 2 of the most extraordinarily skilled fighter pilots in the entire United States Navy. David McCampbell's journey to that pivotal October morning was anything but a linear progression. Born on January 16, 1910, in the industrial heartland of Bessemer, Alabama, he spent his formative years in West Palm Beach, Florida, where his family had relocated during his boyhood. His father, a dedicated manager of a construction company, instilled in young David an early appreciation and aptitude for mechanics and engineering. He subsequently applied to the prestigious United States Naval Academy, securing his appointment in 1929 and joining the distinguished class of 1933. Annapolis presented a rigorous and often brutal environment, characterized by intense hazing rituals, relentless academic pressure, and an unyielding adherence to rigid discipline. Nevertheless, McCampbell not only survived, but thrived within this highly competitive atmosphere. While he did not graduate at the very apex of his class, his performance was consistently solid, reliable, and underscored by an unwavering determination. Following his graduation, he served with distinction aboard the heavy cruiser USS Portland, meticulously acquiring invaluable seamanship skills and a profound understanding of naval tactics, all while observing with keen interest the daring naval aviators as they executed landings on nearby carriers during fleet exercises. There was an undeniable allure about those pilots that captured his unwavering attention. In 1937, McCampbell, driven by an unyielding ambition, applied for flight training at Naval Air Station Pensacola, Florida. At 27 years of age, he was considered remarkably advanced in years by the prevailing standards of naval aviation at that time. The vast majority of pilots typically commenced their training in their early 20s, and the Navy generally favored younger candidates who could anticipate longer careers in active flight service. Yet, McCampbell's sheer persistence ultimately prevailed, and the Navy, recognizing his potential, accepted him despite his age. The flight training regimen proved to be an utterly exhausting ordeal. He diligently piloted the N-3N biplane trainer, meticulously mastering fundamental aerobatics, intricate navigation techniques, and the essential rudiments of aerial gunnery. Subsequently, the crucible of carrier qualification loomed, representing the moment that every aspiring naval aviator both profoundly dreaded and intensely craved. Landing an aircraft on the perpetually pitching deck of an aircraft carrier, grappling with the precision of arresting wires, was an endeavor that bordered more on an intricate art form than a precise science, demanding impeccable speed control, flawless alignment, and nerves of absolute steel. McCampbell triumphantly earned his coveted wings of gold in 1938, yet his timing, in retrospect, seemed almost preternaturally cursed. When the devastating conflagration of World War II erupted in Europe in September 1939, McCampbell found himself serving as a dedicated flight instructor at Naval Air Station, Miami. As America incrementally drew closer to direct involvement in the global conflict, he watched with a mixture of frustration and longing as younger, less experienced pilots were assigned to active carrier squadrons, while he remained inexplicably tethered to various training commands. The Navy's rationale, though frustratingly simple, was undeniably logical. Highly experienced instructors were indispensable for training the massive influx of new pilots required for the burgeoning war effort. McCampbell's exceptional aptitude for teaching meant he remained in that crucial instructional role. By the time the devastating attack on Pearl Harbor occurred on December 7, 1941, McCampbell, then 31 years old, had regrettably never witnessed combat. He submitted a relentless stream of transfer requests to combat squadrons, each one met with a disheartening denial. Month after agonizing month, he was forced to observe the unfolding panorama of war from the confines of training fields in Florida, while his former students fought and tragically often died in the brutal crucible of the Pacific Theater. I am from the United States, and I find the video topic incredibly engaging. It highlights the remarkable courage and skill of individual pilots in the face of overwhelming odds, offering a fascinating glimpse into the human element of aerial combat during World War II. It's a testament to strategic thinking and sheer bravery. His opportunity to truly engage in aerial combat finally materialized in 1942, when the United States Navy's urgent requirement for battle-hardened aviators superseded their previous emphasis on retaining pilots for instructional duties. McCampbell received orders for assignment to the USS Wasp, an aircraft carrier that had recently been redeployed from its Atlantic convoy escort responsibilities to the demanding Pacific theater of operations. While aboard, he diligently executed combat air patrol sorties, vigilantly safeguarding the carrier from potential incursions by Japanese aerial forces, though his actual engagements remained somewhat sporadic. However, fate dealt a cruel blow on September 15, 1942, when the Wasp suffered a catastrophic attack, being struck by 3 torpedoes launched by the Japanese submarine IB-19, all while providing crucial support for the ongoing Guadalcanal campaign. The venerable carrier was subsequently ravaged by a series of devastating internal explosions and relentless, uncontainable fires. Miraculously, McCampbell emerged from the inferno and the sinking vessel, retrieved from the vast expanse of the ocean by vigilant destroyers as the Wasp slowly succumbed to the waves. He had barely experienced the intensity of direct combat, yet he had already endured the profound loss of his assigned ship. Following this harrowing experience, the Navy opted to reassign him to various staff positions, a turn of events that filled McCampbell with apprehension, as he feared he was destined to spend the remainder of the conflict relegated to a desk job, far from the skies he yearned to command. Nevertheless, his unwavering persistence and fervent desire to return to flight duties ultimately bore fruit in early 1943, when he was appointed as the commanding officer of Air Group 15, a newly constituted aerial unit destined for service aboard the legendary USS Essex. This appointment was exceptionally significant, as McCampbell would not merely lead a single squadron of aircraft, but rather an entire integrated air group, a formidable composite force comprising agile fighter planes, potent dive bombers, and effective torpedo bombers. At 33 years of age, he was notably older than the vast majority of the young aviators under his command. Yet this seniority bestowed considerable advantages upon him. He had meticulously accumulated thousands of flight hours, possessed an unparalleled depth of understanding regarding aerial tactics that younger pilots often lacked, and exhibited a remarkable, unshakable calm under intense pressure, a quality that profoundly inspired confidence throughout his unit. Air Group 15 underwent an exhaustive and rigorous training regimen throughout 1943, and when the Essex embarked on its deployment to the Pacific in early 1944, McCampbell was finally positioned to unequivocally demonstrate his exceptional capabilities. His personal Grumman F6F Hellcat proudly bore the affectionate moniker Mincy, a tribute to his beloved wife, Mildred, who was affectionately known by that nickname. By June 1944, amidst the pivotal Battle of the Philippine Sea, an engagement famously dubbed the Marianas Turkey Shoot due to the overwhelming American aerial superiority, McCampbell had already secured his initial 7 aerial victories, definitively cementing his status among the Navy's most elite and proficient combat pilots. Stay with us and watch the end of the video. We will be grateful for your like and subscription. Write a comment about where you are from and what you think about the video topic. The Grumman F6F Hellcat was far more than just another fighter aircraft. It represented a meticulously engineered and strategic response to the brutal, hard-won lessons etched in blood across the vast expanse of the Pacific theater. When American pilots first confronted the formidable Mitsubishi A6M0 in 1942, they faced an adversary that possessed an almost uncanny ability to outturn, outclimb, and outmaneuver virtually every aircraft the United States had in active service. The Zero, distinguished by its lightweight construction, remarkable agility, and lethal effectiveness in the hands of seasoned Japanese aviators, presented a grave challenge. Early American fighter aircraft, such as the F4F Wildcat, were often outmatched, compelling American tactical doctrines to be adapted to compensate for what was, the time, technologically inferior equipment. However, Grumman's ingenious engineers, collaborating closely with combat pilots who had narrowly survived their harrowing encounters with the Zero, conceived and designed the Hellcat with the explicit purpose of unequivocally dominating its Japanese counterpart. The outcome of this collaborative effort was a fighter aircraft that completely reversed the prevailing aerial combat dynamics, turning the tables decisively in favor of the Allies. The Hellcat's Pratt & Whitney R2800 double wasp engine emerged as its primary and most crucial advantage. This monumental 18-cylinder radial power plant generated an astounding 2,000 horsepower, propelling the Hellcat to a blistering top speed of 380 miles per hour at an altitude of 23,000 feet, a substantial increase over the Zero's maximum speed of 350 mph. Speed is an absolutely paramount factor in aerial combat because it fundamentally dictates the terms of engagement. A faster aircraft possesses the invaluable prerogative to choose precisely when to initiate a fight and, crucially, when to disengage from one. Should a Hellcat pilot find himself in a precarious situation, he could simply advance the throttle to its full extent and effortlessly pull away from pursuing Zeros, rapidly widening the distance until he could regroup and prepare for another assault. The Zero simply lacked the velocity to keep pace. This inherent speed advantage also empowered Hellcat pilots to effectively execute boom and zoom tactics, involving a rapid dive from high altitude, a swift, high-speed firing pass on the enemy, followed by an immediate climb back to altitude before the more maneuverable Zeros could bring their superior turning capabilities to bear. McCampbell had thoroughly mastered this particular tactic, deeply understanding that leveraging the Hellcat's inherent strengths while meticulously avoiding its few weaknesses was the ultimate key to both survival and success in the unforgiving skies. Durability represented the second transformative advantage that the Hellcat brought to the theater of war. The Zero achieved its legendary agility by deliberately compromising on protective measures. It featured minimal armor plating and entirely lacked self-sealing fuel tanks. Consequently, even a single well-placed burst of machine gun fire could ignite a Zero's fuel tanks, instantly transforming the aircraft into a fiery, uncontrollable inferno. Japanese pilots, in a grim acknowledgement of this profound vulnerability, often referred to their aircraft as flying lighters. The Hellcat, conversely, was constructed with the rugged resilience of a flying tank. It incorporated substantial armor plating positioned directly behind the pilot's seat, robust armored glass integrated into the windscreen, and, critically, self-sealing fuel tanks, designed to automatically seal bullet holes, thereby preventing dangerous fuel leaks and catastrophic fires. Hellcats were frequently observed absorbing immense battle damage and yet still managing to bring their pilots safely back to base. Grumman's renowned, robust construction meant that even when Zeros did manage to achieve solid hits on Hellcats, the American aircraft frequently endured the assault. This inherent durability instilled Hellcat pilots with the confidence to aggressively press their attacks, secure in the knowledge that their aircraft possessed the structural integrity to withstand significant punishment. Firepower constituted the third decisive advantage, and in this regard, the Hellcat was overwhelmingly superior. Each Hellcat was armed with 6 Browning M2.50 caliber heavy machine guns strategically mounted with 3 in each wing and supplied with a generous 400 rounds per gun. These formidable weapons discharged between 750 and 850 rounds per minute, and the 50 caliber round itself delivered an immense destructive force upon impact. When all 6 guns were fired simultaneously, a common occurrence when a Hellcat pilot engaged an enemy, they unleashed a torrent of projectiles capable of shearing through aluminum airframes, shattering engines, and disintegrating control surfaces with brutal efficiency. The Zero, in stark contrast, typically carried only 2 20mm cannons with a limited ammunition supply and 2 7.7mm machine guns. While the 20mm cannon certainly delivered a more potent punch per shell, its restricted ammunition capacity compelled Zero pilots to be judicious and selective with their firing. Hellcat pilots, however, could afford to unleash longer bursts, and the sheer volume of 50 caliber rounds significantly increased the probability of hitting their targets. McCampbell in particular was renowned for his exceptional marksmanship. He rarely expended ammunition needlessly, preferring to fire short, precise bursts that maximized his finite supply. The Hellcat's cockpit visibility was notably superior, affording its pilots an enhanced and expansive view of the surrounding airspace. The distinctive bubble canopy provided exceptional sightlines in virtually all directions, a critical advantage for detecting enemy fighters before they could maneuver into a favorable attack position. Aerial combat during World War II was frequently decided by whichever pilot managed to spot the adversary first. Superior visibility directly translated into superior situational awareness, and heightened situational awareness in turn often meant surviving to engage in combat another day. Furthermore, the aircraft ingeniously incorporated hydraulically powered folding wings, a design feature that significantly enhanced carrier storage efficiency and allowed aircraft carriers to accommodate a greater number of fighters aboard. The rate of roll, which measures how swiftly an aircraft can rotate around its longitudinal axis, represented another significant Hellcat advantage, facilitating rapid changes in direction during intense dogfights. Perhaps most crucially for the demanding environment of carrier operations, the Hellcat was remarkably easy to fly. It possessed forgiving handling characteristics, exhibited no treacherous stall behaviors, and provided an exceptionally stable platform for accurate gunnery. These qualities meant that even rookie pilots could be trained to operational proficiency much more rapidly than with more temperamental or complex aircraft. The morning's intelligence briefing in the ready room was nothing short of pandemonium. Approximately at 08:20 hours, radar operators relayed urgent reports of an approaching Japanese aerial assault, and within moments, the ship's internal communication system blared the unmistakable command, "Pilots, man your planes." Commander McCampbell, along with the other available fighter pilots, sprinted with urgency toward the flight deck, hastily donning their essential flight gear as they ran. The customary pre-flight inspections were severely condensed to only the most critical checks. Remarkably, some aircraft were still undergoing refueling by mechanics when the imperative order to launch without delay was issued. McCampbell's dedicated crew chief delivered the sobering news. His F6F Hellcat fighter possessed only approximately 300 gallons of aviation fuel, a stark contrast to the standard 550 gallons typically held in the main tank. This represented roughly half of his usual fuel load for combat operations. A rapid mental calculation informed McCampbell that he had, at best, perhaps 2 hours of flight time, and that estimate was based on economical cruise settings. Engaging in strenuous combat maneuvers, requiring full throttle, would deplete his fuel reserves at a significantly accelerated rate. While many pilots might have prudently waited for their aircraft to be fully fueled, such a delay carried the severe risk of allowing the Japanese strike force to reach the vulnerable American carriers completely unmolested. Please stay with us and watch the end of the video. We will be grateful for your like and subscription. Write a comment about where you are from and what you think about the video topic. Lieutenant Roy Rushing found himself in an identical predicament. His own Hellcat was similarly underfueled, yet Rushing displayed no hesitation whatsoever. This 24-year-old aviator, hailing from the state of Tennessee, had served as McCampbell's trusted wingman for a period of several months. During this time, they had cultivated a profound, unspoken understanding, a synergy that emerges only from repeated, intense combat experiences shared between two individuals. An exemplary wingman's role transcends mere following. Such a pilot proactively anticipates the leader's actions, diligently safeguards their blind spots, and coordinates offensive maneuvers without the need for explicit, detailed instructions. Rushing was unequivocally one of the finest. He had already accumulated several confirmed aerial victories during prior missions, and his proficiency in gunnery was nearly on par with McCampbell's own formidable accuracy. As they settled into their respective cockpits, McCampbell transmitted a concise briefing to Rushing via radio. Stay together, make every shot count, and watch the fuel gauges. Their strategy for this engagement would demand exceptional tactical acumen, as they understood intimately that they would not be afforded a second opportunity. The 7 Hellcats roared to life and launched sequentially, propelled from the carrier deck by powerful catapults in controlled bursts of steam and hydraulic force. Once airborne, they swiftly formed a loose combat formation and commenced their ascent toward the designated intercept coordinates, which were continuously updated by the fighter direction officer. The radio channels buzzed with tense yet professional communications. Other American fighter squadrons from different carriers were also scrambling into the skies, but overall coordination between the various ships remained minimal. Each individual carrier group was, in essence, tasked with independently managing its own defensive operations. McCampbell's flight ultimately reached an altitude of 25,000 feet, and then leveled off, their eyes meticulously scanning the vast horizon for any sign of the impending enemy formation. At this considerable altitude, the air was notably thin and exceedingly cold, while the Hellcat's powerful engines hummed with a steady, reassuring, mechanical rhythm. McCampbell systematically checked his array of instruments. Oil pressure indicated good, engine temperature registered normal, and ammunition counters proudly displayed full loads. He commanded a formidable arsenal of 2,400 rounds, distributed across his 6 formidable machine guns. If he exercised stringent discipline with his trigger control, this substantial ammunition load could potentially translate into dozens of effective firing opportunities against the enemy. Then, with a sudden clarity, he spotted them. The Japanese formation materialized as minuscule dark specks against the expansive blue canvas of the sky, rapidly expanding in size as the two opposing forces swiftly converged. McCampbell executed a quick mental tally, at least 60 enemy aircraft, possibly even more. They were arrayed in a relatively dispersed formation, with nimble Zero fighters strategically positioned above and around the more ponderous bomber aircraft. The bomber contingent comprised a diverse mix of Nakajima B-6N Jill torpedo bombers and Yokosuka D-4Y Judy dive bombers, each laden with deadly ordnance specifically designed to inflict catastrophic damage upon the American carrier fleet. The Zero fighters were tasked with their protection, and McCampbell was acutely aware that these escort fighters would exhibit aggressive tactics. While Japanese fighter pilots in the waning months of 1944 were not the same elite veterans who had distinguished themselves at pivotal battles like Midway or Guadalcanal, most of those seasoned aces having perished in earlier engagements, they nonetheless remained a formidable threat, their desperation making them dangerously unpredictable. The remaining 5 Hellcats within McCampbell's flight expertly peeled off diverting to engage various segments of the expansive enemy formation, meticulously adhering to their pre-briefed tactical plan. This maneuver left McCampbell and Rushing isolated, a mere pair of fighters confronting an overwhelming force of 60. McCampbell keyed his radio and, in a remarkably calm tone, instructed Rushing, "Stay with me. We'll hit the bombers first." The underlying tactical rationale was undeniably sound. The bombers constituted the primary and most immediate threat to the American aircraft carriers. Their destruction would effectively neutralize the impending danger. Enemy fighters, while dangerous, were considered secondary targets in this critical moment. If they could successfully disrupt the bomber formation, compelling them to jettison their lethal torpedoes and bombs prematurely, the mission would be deemed a resounding success, even if they failed to shoot down a single Zero fighter. McCampbell skillfully positioned his Hellcat above and slightly behind the burgeoning Japanese formation, leveraging his superior altitude to meticulously set up his inaugural attack run. The Japanese aviators had not yet detected their presence. Their attention primarily focused on maintaining tight formation and vigilantly scanning for American fighters approaching from their forward arc. McCampbell carefully checked his gun sight. The illuminated reticle pulsed with an amber glow in the center of his windscreen. He then activated the master armament switch to the armed position, perceiving a subtle electrical hum as the gun charging system engaged. His heart rate remained steady, his breathing controlled and measured. Years of rigorous training and months of intense combat experience had meticulously prepared him for this precise, critical moment. He smoothly rolled his Hellcat inverted, pulled back on the control stick with practiced precision, and initiated a steep dive toward the unsuspecting Japanese formation, with Rushing following closely in his wake. McCampbell, as initial target, was a Yokosuka D-4Y Judy dive bomber, which was flying conspicuously on the formation's left flank. The Judy was an elegant aircraft, possessing commendable speed for its class, but it was utterly defenseless against the relentless assault of a diving Hellcat attacking from its highly vulnerable rear quarter. McCampbell meticulously aligned his shot, patiently waiting until he had closed the distance to approximately 300 yards before decisively squeezing the trigger. The Hellcat vibrated violently as all 6 of its formidable .50 caliber machine guns erupted into a thunderous roar, unleashing torrents of tracer rounds that arced through the air, converging with deadly precision on the dive bomber. The initial burst of fire struck the Judy's engine cowling and the root of its right wing. Fragments of aluminum skin tore away, and a telltale plume of smoke began to trail from the damaged engine. McCampbell maintained his trigger pressure for another half-second, discharging perhaps 60 rounds in total, then released. The disciplined practice of firing short, controlled bursts was absolutely critical. Wildly spraying ammunition was a surefire way for pilots to exhaust their precious ammunition reserves before the engagement had even concluded. The Judy rolled sluggishly to the right, rapidly losing altitude, its pilot desperately struggling to regain control. The black smoke rapidly intensified, transforming into an ominous orange flame, and the crippled bomber began its irreversible death spiral toward the vast expanse of the ocean, 25,000 feet below. McCampbell, however, did not linger to watch its demise. He was already intently scanning for his next target. Energy management remained at the forefront of his tactical considerations. The steep dive from altitude had imbued his Hellcat with tremendous speed, likely approaching 400 knot-hour deploy, and he deftly utilized this velocity to zoom back upwards, converting kinetic energy back into potential altitude. This classic yo-yo maneuver allowed him to maintain a position above the Japanese formation, thereby preserving his crucial energy advantage. Rushing, with equally precise gunnery, had simultaneously dispatched a torpedo bomber during the very same pass. The Japanese formation now reacted with urgency, Zero fighters breaking away from their escort positions to intercept the two audacious Hellcats. But McCampbell had anticipated precisely this response. He had already climbed back to an impressive 26,000 feet, and the Zeros, encumbered by their external fuel tanks, struggled significantly to match his superior climb rate. He estimated he had approximately 30 seconds before they could reach his position. Ample time, he calculated, for yet another devastating attack. His second target was a Mitsubishi Zero that had climbed faster than its companions, attempting to cut off McCampbell's anticipated escape route. Bell's escape. The initial engagement saw a Japanese Zero pilot exhibit an overly aggressive approach, unleashing rounds from his 20mm cannons prematurely. These projectiles harmlessly sailed beneath McCampbell's formidable Hellcat fighter aircraft. McCampbell, a seasoned aviator, instantly recognized the enemy's tactical miscalculation. The Japanese pilot had gravely misjudged the necessary deflection angle for an effective shot, consequently expending precious ammunition without impact. Seizing this critical error, McCampbell executed a swift barrel roll, a maneuver that artfully inverted his position and transformed his superior altitude into a commanding vantage point directly behind and slightly above the unsuspecting Zero. The spatial alignment was impeccable. He initiated a precise 3-second volley, discharging approximately 90 rounds of .50 caliber ammunition, which relentlessly tore through the Zero's unarmored fuselage. The enemy fighter disintegrated in a violent explosion of shrapnel and debris, its fuel tanks erupting in a vivid, incandescent orange fireball. This marked his second confirmed aerial victory. McCampbell's combat awareness was operating at its zenith, allowing him to track multiple enemy aircraft concurrently. His extensive experience enabled him to accurately anticipate their trajectories and intentions. He keenly observed a pair of Zeros attempting a classic pincer maneuver, attacking from the 2 o'clock and 10 o'clock positions. This well-known Japanese tactic aimed to compel the American pilot to commit to one direction, thereby leaving him vulnerable to a clear shot from the other Zero. However, McCampbell had encountered and countered this specific maneuver on numerous occasions. With practiced precision, he pushed the control stick forward, initiating a sharp dive, then abruptly pulled hard to the left. The immense G-forces pressed him firmly into his seat as the Hellcat executed a tight turn, cutting inside the attacking Zero's arc. The Japanese pilot valiantly attempted to follow, but his aircraft could not match the Hellcat's superior roll rate. McCampbell then unleashed a perfectly timed deflection shot, aiming not at the Zero's current position, but where it would be. His rounds meticulously penetrated the enemy fighter's cockpit. The Zero inverted and plummeted earthward, leaving a telltale plume of smoke in its wake. 3 enemy aircraft dispatched, and a mere 10 minutes had elapsed since takeoff. "Skipper, 2 more bombers breaking right." Rushing's voice urgently crackled over the radio. McCampbell immediately identified them. 2 Nakajima B-6N Jill torpedo bombers desperately attempting to flee the aerial pandemonium by diving away from the main formation. These bombers posed an imminent and grave threat. heading directly toward the American carrier task force. Should they succeed in their evasion, each aircraft carried an aerial torpedo capable of sinking a formidable carrier. McCampbell rolled into pursuit, pushing the throttle to its maximum setting. The powerful R-2800 engine responded instantaneously, its propeller aggressively biting into the thin atmosphere. He rapidly overtook the first Jill, whose rear gunner frantically fired a 7.7mm machine gun in a desperate act of defense. The small caliber rounds harmlessly ricocheted off the Hellcat's armored windscreen, marring the glass but failing to penetrate its reinforced integrity. Ignoring the defensive fire, McCampbell unleashed a concentrated burst into the bomber's port engine. The engine seized immediately, its propeller freezing into place, and the Jill began an uncontrolled descent. McCampbell swiftly shifted his aim to the second bomber and fired again. This subsequent burst struck the fuel tanks situated between the wings, causing the Jill to explode violently in midair. The ensuing shock wave momentarily buffeted McCampbell's Hellcat. 4 and 5 enemy aircraft destroyed. Please stay with us and watch the end of the video. We will be grateful for your like and subscription. Please write a comment about where you are from and what you think about the video topic. Between the intense engagements, McCampbell meticulously scanned his instrument panel, his eyes sweeping across the gauges in a well-rehearsed manner. Fuel levels were rapidly becoming a critical concern. The needles on both the main tank and reserve indicators had dropped significantly. Combat maneuvering, particularly the full throttle climbs and dives he had been executing, consumed fuel at an alarming rate. He estimated he had perhaps 45 minutes of flight time remaining, potentially even less. His ammunition counters indicated he had expended approximately 400 rounds, leaving him with a substantial reserve. However, he now needed to be even more judicious in his targeting. Every single round had to achieve its intended purpose. The Japanese formation was in utter disarray, with bombers scattering indiscriminately and Zeros desperately attempting to shield them while simultaneously engaging the American fighters. McCampbell observed other Hellcats from different carriers now joining the fray, transforming the sky into a chaotic entanglement of circling aircraft, streams of tracer rounds, and lingering smoke trails. Yet he maintained unwavering focus, relentlessly searching for targets of opportunity while actively avoiding tunnel vision, the perilous tendency to fixate on a single target and overlook threats from other directions. A Zero pilot committed a grave error, inadvertently crossing directly in front of McCampbell's nose at close range, while in pursuit of another Hellcat. McCampbell did not hesitate. He pulled lead, aiming slightly ahead of the Zero's projected flight path, and fired a concise burst. The closing speed was exceptionally high, and his rounds precisely traversed through the Zero's cockpit and engine. The Japanese fighter rolled violently to the left, pieces detaching from its airframe before entering a flat spin. No parachute deployed. 6 enemy aircraft vanquished. McCampbell's innate combat instincts were now fully activated, his conscious thought almost secondary to the automatic responses meticulously ingrained through countless hours of rigorous training. His hands and feet expertly manipulated the controls, coordinating stick, rudder, and throttle inputs without any conscious deliberation, while his mind remained several steps ahead, constantly assessing both threats and opportunities. He detected another bomber attempting to reach the carriers, a duty dive bomber skimming low, endeavoring to utilize its speed and altitude to evade the American fighters. McCampbell inverted his aircraft and pulled through, diving relentlessly after the fleeing bomber. The pursuit extended for several miles. McCampbell progressively overtook the ostensibly faster bomber, a testament to his Hellcat's superior speed at lower altitudes. The Japanese pilot demonstrated considerable skill, jinking left and right, making himself an exceedingly difficult target. McCampbell waited with unwavering patience, refusing to squander precious ammunition on low-percentage shots. He closed the distance to 200 yards, then to a mere 50 yards, until he could distinctly see the rear gunner frantically operating his weapon. McCampbell unleashed a prolonged burst, likely around 80 rounds, and the concentrated fire utterly shredded the Judy's tail section. The bomber's elevator controls were obliterated, and the aircraft pitched nose down, plunging inexorably into the vast expanse of the ocean. 7 enemy aircraft eliminated. "Boss, I'm at bingo fuel." Rushing's voice crackled once more over the radio. Bingo fuel signified that Rushing had reached the minimum fuel required to safely return to the carrier, with sufficient reserves. McCampbell checked his own gauges. He, too, was nearing bingo fuel, with perhaps only 5 minutes of combat time remaining. However, the Japanese formation was still within striking range, and more bombers were desperately attempting to penetrate their defenses. McCampbell made a calculated, resolute decision. He would continue to engage the enemy until his fuel situation became absolutely critical. "Copy, Roy. Head back. I'll stay another few minutes." Rushing acknowledged the order and turned his Hellcat toward the USS Essex, his aircraft quickly disappearing into the distance. McCampbell was now alone, a solitary fighter against what remained of the Japanese strike force. He climbed back to a commanding altitude, meticulously scanning for new targets. 2 Zeros circled below him, clearly searching for his position. McCampbell possessed the crucial altitude advantage and exploited it mercilessly. He dove on the trailing Zero, the Japanese pilot completely oblivious to the Hellcat descending from the sun directly behind him. McCampbell's shot was executed with textbook precision, a 2-second burst that simultaneously struck the Zero's engine and cockpit. The fighter exploded in a spectacular fashion, the blast so violent that McCampbell was compelled to maneuver sharply to the right to avoid flying directly through the expanding debris field. 8 enemy aircraft downed. The tally reached 9. The second Zero fighter, exhibiting swift reflexes, initiated a sharp left turn and ascended rapidly, attempting to establish a superior tactical position over McCampbell. However, the inherent speed advantage of the Hellcat allowed McCampbell to swiftly distance himself, creating a crucial gap before leveraging his energy to climb back above the Japanese aircraft. The Japanese aviator demonstrated commendable defensive maneuvers, but the performance disparity between the two aircraft proved insurmountable. McCampbell skillfully maneuvered into an optimal firing position, unleashing his conclusive volley of the engagement. The 9th Zero plummeted from the sky, leaving a vivid trail of smoke and flames in its wake. With 9 enemy aircraft now eliminated, McCampbell's ammunition indicators revealed he had expended approximately 900 rounds in total, representing just over a third of his entire ordnance supply, an astonishing testament to his precision and efficiency in aerial combat. Nevertheless, his fuel reserves had now reached a perilous state. The warning lamp on his fuel panel glowed an ominous red, signaling a mere 15 minutes of flight time remaining at a standard cruising power setting. He oriented his Hellcat in the presumed direction of the Essex, broadcasting a request for a heading over the radio. The fighter direction officer promptly acknowledged and supplied the necessary navigational vectors. McCampbell meticulously adjusted the aircraft for maximum fuel efficiency, leaning the fuel mixture and reducing engine RPM to conserve every precious drop of aviation fuel. Roy Rushing's aerial combat was equally fierce, though it unfolded along a slightly different sector of the sprawling, chaotic battleground. While McCampbell engaged in the higher altitudes of the conflict, Rushing concentrated his efforts on intercepting enemy bombers attempting to disengage at medium altitudes, specifically between 15,000 and 20,000 feet. His inaugural kill occurred mere minutes after McCampbell's initial assault, a Nakajima B-6N Jill bomber that had broken formation and was accelerating at full throttle towards the American carrier fleet. Rushing closed in directly from the stern, the classic 6-0 clock position, and discharged a sustained burst of fire that ripped through the bomber's fuselage and cockpit. The Jill immediately pitched forward and plunged into the vast expanse of the sea. His subsequent kill was another Jill, this one endeavoring to ascend back into the protective embrace of cloud cover for concealment. Rushing pursued it into the clouds, briefly relying on his instruments, then emerged above the cloud layer precisely as the bomber broke into clear air. He obliterated it with a deflection shot that cleanly severed the bomber's tail section. Rushing's 3rd through 5th victories transpired in rapid succession within a 3-minute interval, showcasing both his exceptional gunnery prowess and acute tactical insight. He had identified a formation of 3 Zeros providing escort for 2 remaining bombers, and rather than engaging the fighters first, he executed a high-speed, slashing attack on the bombers from an unanticipated angle, diving from their 11-0 clock position. The escorting Zeros were unable to react with sufficient speed. Rushing annihilated both bombers with concise, accurate bursts, then utilized his accumulated speed to zoom back upwards before the Zeros could effectively engage. When one Zero pilot attempted to pursue him, Rushing deftly reversed course, catching the climbing Zero in a low-energy state, and promptly shot it down. His 6th confirmed kill was a Judy dive bomber that had somehow eluded other American fighters and was making a determined approach towards the carriers. Rushing intercepted it at 8,000 feet, delivered a prolonged burst into its port wing, causing the wing to shear off completely. The bomber then tumbled into the ocean like a desiccated leaf. His 7th and final kill proved to be the most challenging. He engaged a Zero pilot who was undeniably more experienced than most, an adversary who comprehended energy management and skillfully exploited the Zero's superior maneuverability. The 2 fighter aircraft circled each other for several grueling minutes, each striving to secure a positional advantage. Rushing, recognizing he could not outturn the Zero, wisely refrained from attempting to do so. Instead, he employed vertical maneuvers, including climbs, dives, and barrel rolls, where the Hellcat's superior engine power afforded him a distinct advantage. Eventually, the Zero pilot committed an error, pulling too sharply in a turn and consequently bleeding off too much airspeed. Rushing capitalized instantly, firing a burst that struck the Zero's engine. The Japanese fighter asked to engine seized, and without power, it became utterly defenseless. Rushing delivered the final blow with another burst that ignited the Zero's fuel tanks. 7 confirmed kills in a single mission, an extraordinary accomplishment by any conceivable measure. We invite you to stay with us and watch the conclusion of this remarkable video. We would be deeply grateful for your like and subscription. Please also share a comment about your origin and your thoughts on the topic discussed in this video. However, Rushing's fuel situation had now become truly desperate. When he radioed bingo fuel and initiated his return course towards the Essex, his fuel gauges registered dangerously close to empty. He had been airborne for approximately 90 minutes, the vast majority of which was spent operating at combat power settings. The return journey seemed interminable, every passing minute fraught with the apprehension that his engine might sputter and die before he could reach the safety of the carrier. He finally sighted the formidable task force, an impressive assembly of multiple carriers, battleships, cruisers, and destroyers spread across miles of ocean. Yet pinpointing the specific carrier, the Essex, proved challenging. From altitude, they all appeared remarkably similar, and battle damage or differing configurations could easily obscure proper identification. Rushing radioed for a vector, and the fighter direction officer expertly guided him in, but as he descended towards the Essex, a vigilant deck crew member waved him off. The flight deck was currently obstructed with aircraft undergoing repositioning. Rushing simply did not possess the fuel reserves to circle and await clearance. He therefore diverted to the USS Langley, a light carrier operating in close proximity, and urgently requested emergency landing clearance. The Langley's landing signal officer skillfully guided him in, his paddles executing the practiced signals that communicated Rushing's approach speed and alignment. Rushing, Hellcat gracefully crossed the carrier as fantail, snagged the number 3 arresting wire, and was brought to a violent, abrupt halt. His engine coughed once, then again, and finally died completely. Rushing remained in the cockpit for a moment, the adrenaline slowly draining, his hands trembling slightly from the immense stress of the engagement and the perilous, fuel-critical landing. Deck crew members swarmed his aircraft, chocking the wheels and attaching a tow bar. When mechanics subsequently inspected his fuel tanks, they discovered less than 5 gallons remaining, barely sufficient for 2 additional minutes of flight. Had the Langley not been available, Rushing would undoubtedly have been forced to ditch his aircraft in the ocean, hoping for a timely rescue by a destroyer. McCampbell encountered the identical predicament. His fuel gauges indicated critically low levels as he approached the task force. He successfully identified the Essex, but, like Rushing, received a wave-off. The flight deck remained fouled. McCampbell's engine was now running roughly, the onset of fuel starvation causing noticeable misfires. He understood he could not afford to wait. Similar to Rushing, he diverted his aircraft to the Langley. His approach was flawlessly executed, his landing impeccable despite the immense pressure. His Hellcat rolled to a complete stop, and the engine ceased functioning before the deck crew could even reach his aircraft. Mechanics later meticulously measured his remaining fuel, a mere 10 gallons. Both extraordinary pilots had pushed their aircraft, and indeed themselves, to the absolute limits of endurance and capability. Upon Lieutenant Commander David McCampbell's return to the deck of the USS Langley, stepping out of his F6F Hellcat, the flight deck personnel were visibly struck by a potent mix of astonishment and disbelief. Whispers and reports, initially fragmented, detailing an extraordinary aerial engagement and staggering kill counts had already coursed through the task force's radio networks. The astonishing tale of two lone American pilots single-handedly fending off a vast Japanese strike force had captivated everyone. Without delay, an intelligence officer, clipboard firmly in hand, approached McCampbell to initiate the mandatory post-mission debriefing. These debriefings were absolutely essential for substantiating victory claims, as the Navy stringently required corroborating evidence, such as gun camera footage, corroborating statements from fellow pilots, or definitive physical confirmation of wreckage. It was widely acknowledged that during the frenetic chaos of aerial combat, overclaiming was a common occurrence, with multiple pilots often firing upon the same target, and each subsequently laying claim to its destruction. Therefore, McCampbell's claims would undergo rigorous and meticulous scrutiny. McCampbell proceeded to recount each engagement with meticulous precision, detailing altitudes, precise headings, the types of enemy aircraft encountered, and the damage he observed. His gun camera film was poised to provide irrefutable evidence. The K-24 camera, discreetly mounted behind the Hellcat's instrument panel, automatically activated each time he pressed the trigger, capturing invaluable footage of his targets. This film, once meticulously developed, would conclusively display 9 distinct enemy aircraft being hit by his fire and subsequently plummeting from the sky. Lieutenant Junior grade Roy Rushing underwent an identical debriefing process, his 7 confirmed kills also necessitating thorough validation. The intelligence officers diligently cross-referenced their individual accounts with radar tracks, radio communications from other pilots, and the observations provided by ship personnel who had witnessed portions of the engagement. Over the ensuing days, all 16 kills were unequivocally confirmed, 9 attributed to McCampbell and 7 to Rushing. No other American fighter pilots in the annals of history had ever achieved such remarkable single-mission kill totals while operating as a mere two-plane element against such overwhelming numerical superiority. Stay with us and watch the end of the video. We will be grateful for your like and subscription. The repercussions on Japanese naval aviation were both immediate and profoundly catastrophic. The formidable strike force that had descended upon the American carriers that fateful morning comprised approximately 60 aircraft. By the time the engagement concluded, fewer than 20 Japanese planes managed to survive and limped back to their home bases. Those few bombers that did penetrate the American defenses and reach the carriers achieved only minimal, negligible results. Not a single American carrier was sunk, and only superficial damage was inflicted upon a handful of ships. Japanese records from October 24, 1944, vividly illustrate the profound shock and disarray within their command structure. They had committed a significant portion of their remaining air strength to this audacious attack, fully anticipating inflicting severe damage on the American fleet. Instead, they suffered devastating losses for an utterly negligible gain. The psychological impact on the surviving Japanese pilots was immense and demoralizing. Reports began to circulate about American superfighters and pilots possessing almost supernatural skill, the burgeoning mythology surrounding American fighter superiority, already gaining traction since the Marianas Turkey shoot in June 1944, was now indelibly cemented. Admiral William Halsey, the formidable commander of the Third Fleet, dispatched a personal commendation to McCampbell mere days after the engagement. Fleet headquarters unequivocally recognized that McCampbell and Rushing had, through their singular efforts, averted what could have been a truly devastating attack on the vital carriers supporting the Leyte Gulf invasion. The Navy Department acted swiftly to honor McCampbell's extraordinary achievement with the Medal of Honor, the nation's most distinguished military decoration. The accompanying citation, formally presented in January 1945, read in part, "For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty as Commander, Air Group 15, during combat against enemy Japanese aerial forces in the first and second battles of the Philippine Sea. An inspiring leader, fighting boldly in the face of terrific odds, Commander McCampbell led his fighter planes against a force of 80 Japanese carrier-based aircraft bearing down on our fleet on June 19, 1944. The citation further documented his incredible October 24th mission, where he shot down 9 Japanese planes and, by utterly disorganizing the enemy's attack, ascended to become the Navy's leading ace with a cumulative total of 34 enemy planes destroyed. The tactical lessons gleaned from this pivotal engagement were subjected to intensive study by naval aviation commands across the board. McCampbell's remarkably disciplined approach to ammunition management became a mandatory subject in fighter tactics courses. His unparalleled ability to destroy 9 aircraft with approximately 900 rounds represented a hit efficiency that most pilots simply could not hope to replicate. His masterful energy management, skillfully employing altitude and speed to dictate the terms of engagement, was swiftly integrated into doctrine. Furthermore, the engagement served as a powerful validation of the Hellcat's fundamental design philosophy. The aircraft had performed precisely as Grumman engineers had envisioned. It provided a truly skilled pilot with the indispensable tools to utterly dominate in aerial combat. Production of Hellcats consequently accelerated dramatically, and by the conclusion of the war, an astonishing total of over 12,000 F6F Hellcats had been manufactured. Timekaku were 2s. The aircraft's kill ratio against Japanese fighters stood at an approximate 19:1, meaning, for every Hellcat lost in combat, American pilots destroyed 19 Japanese aircraft. No other fighter in the entirety of World War II could boast such an unparalleled record. Later that same day, McCampbell returned to the USS Essex, transported by destroyer. His air group greeted him with an outpouring of congratulations. Yet McCampbell, in his characteristic humility, consistently downplayed his own monumental achievement. He steadfastly credited the Hellcat's superior performance and emphatically highlighted Rushing's equally impressive 7-kill mission. However, the Navy was not about to permit this extraordinary accomplishment to simply fade into routine operational reports. McCampbell rapidly became the public face of American naval aviation's burgeoning dominance, making appearances in newsreels and actively participating in war bond drives once he rotated stateside in early 1945. David McCampbell's final tally, by the conclusion of the war, stood at an astonishing 34 aerial victories, solidifying his status as the United States Navy's all-time leading ace. That remarkable record endures to this very day, more than 80 years later, remaining unchallenged, and, given the profoundly altered nature of modern aerial warfare, highly likely to remain so indefinitely. Those 34 kills were not amassed through reckless aggression or mere strokes of luck. They represented the profound culmination of unparalleled skill, exceptional tactical intelligence, and the perfect, symbiotic marriage between pilot and machine. McCampbell flew a total of 7 grueling combat tours and logged over 400 carrier landings, each one an exacting test of nerve and precision. His final combat mission occurred in December 1944, after which he was rotated back to the United States. The Navy simply could not afford the risk of losing their top ace in combat when his invaluable experience could be far more effectively utilized to train and inspire the next generation of courageous fighter pilots. I am from Frerk, your country region, and I found this video topic incredibly compelling, offering a vivid and detailed account of one of the most remarkable aerial engagements in history. It truly underscores the courage and skill of pilots like McCampbell and Rushing. Roy Rushing concluded his distinguished wartime service with an impressive tally of 13 confirmed aerial victories, an extraordinary achievement that earned him the prestigious Navy Cross for his valor during the pivotal October 24th engagement. His unwavering dedication to duty saw him continue to fly demanding combat missions until the cessation of hostilities in August 1945. Following the global conflict, Rushing maintained his commitment to the naval service, embarking on a long and commendable career that ultimately culminated in his honorable retirement as a captain 1964, a testament to his enduring leadership and expertise. He passed away in 2004 at the venerable age of 84, having been privileged to witness an astonishing transformation in naval aviation technology. His lifetime spanned the dramatic evolution from the propeller-driven fighters of his combat days to the roaring jets that dominated the Cold War era, and finally to the sophisticated multi-role FA-18 Super Hornets of the modern age. During interviews conducted in the twilight of his life, Rushing invariably characterized the momentous events of October 24, 1944, with remarkable humility, stating it was merely the mission where everything went right. Such understated remarks are truly profound given the colossal scale of his achievement. A lasting bond of camaraderie formed between him and McCampbell, a friendship that endured throughout their respective lives. They frequently graced naval aviation reunions and specialized symposiums where eager younger generations of pilots would seek their wisdom, keenly inquiring about the precise techniques and the mental fortitude that enabled such unparalleled aerial victories. The overarching strategic significance of the Battle of Leyte Gulf, within which the aerial engagement of October 24th constituted a crucial element, is truly immeasurable and cannot be exaggerated. This monumental four-day naval confrontation, unfolding from October 23 to October 26, 1944, effectively annihilated the Imperial Japanese Navy as a viable offensive force. During this cataclysmic period, Japan suffered catastrophic losses, including 4 precious aircraft carriers, 3 formidable battleships, 10 versatile cruisers, and 11 agile destroyers, an inventory of naval power that their beleaguered industrial capacity was utterly incapable of replenishing. Consequently, American naval supremacy over the vital Philippine waters was definitively cemented, allowing the systematic liberation of the Philippines to advance precisely as planned. Furthermore, with these strategic gains, the Japanese home islands were now brought squarely within the operational reach of American long-range bombers, thus illuminating an unmistakable and direct pathway to the ultimate Allied victory in the Pacific theater. Please stay with us and watch the end of the video. We will be grateful for your like and subscription. Please write a comment about where you are from and what you think about the video topic. While the individual contribution of McCampbell and Rushing accounting for a total of 16 enemy aircraft decimated during that intense engagement, might appear numerically modest when viewed against the immense backdrop of the broader strategic landscape. Its true significance cannot be underestimated. Each of those 16 destroyed airplanes represented a formidable bomber, laden with ordnance, that was otherwise poised to unleash a devastating assault upon vulnerable American aircraft carriers. Had even a mere fraction, perhaps 2 or 3, of those hostile bombers managed to penetrate the defensive screen and successfully deliver their lethal torpedoes, the consequences could have been dire. An American carrier might have suffered severe damage or even been irrevocably sunk, an event that would have inevitably led to significant delays in critical naval operations and, tragically, the loss of numerous American lives. Following the conclusion of the war, David McCampbell's professional trajectory within the United States Navy vividly mirrored the exceptional reputation for competence and leadership he had forged in the crucible of combat. He steadfastly continued his service, ascending through a series of increasingly demanding command and staff appointments. Notably, his leadership acumen was recognized through his command of the carrier USS Severn, a significant naval vessel. Additionally, he lent his strategic intellect to the highest echelons of naval planning, serving with distinction as a planning officer for the esteemed Chief of Naval Operations. His illustrious naval career ultimately culminated in his well-deserved retirement as a captain in the year 1964, a testament to decades of dedicated service. However, retirement from active duty did not usher McCampbell into a period of obscurity. Rather, it marked a new chapter of continued influence and engagement. He channeled his extensive expertise into the burgeoning aerospace industry, contributing his insights and experience. Furthermore, he served as a valuable consultant on advanced fighter tactics, sharing the wisdom gained from his unparalleled combat record. His profound knowledge and captivating presence made him a highly sought-after speaker at numerous prestigious military and aviation events across the nation. In a profound tribute to his extraordinary service and heroism, the United States Navy bestowed a rare honor upon him, naming a state-of-the-art guided missile destroyer, the USS McCampbell DDG-85. In his honor, this formidable warship was commissioned in 2002, a mere 3 years prior to his passing. David McCampbell departed this life on June 30, 1996, at the age of 86. And was interred with the highest military honors at the hallowed grounds of Arlington National Cemetery. His gravestone, a solemn marker of his indelible legacy, proudly bears his name, his distinguished rank, and the complete citation for his Medal of Honor, serving as an eternal testament to his exceptional courage and unwavering dedication to his country. The pivotal mission of October 24, 1944, served as a watershed moment, fundamentally reshaping Japanese strategic perceptions regarding the formidable capabilities of American fighter pilots. Before this decisive engagement, Imperial Japanese commanders, even in the face of escalating attrition, harbored a persistent, if increasingly tenuous, belief that their aviators could still attain localized air superiority under optimal conditions. However, in the brutal aftermath of the Battle of Leyte Gulf, this lingering illusion was utterly and irrevocably shattered. American intelligence agencies, diligently monitoring intercepted Japanese radio communications in the weeks subsequent to the monumental battle, detected a palpable and dramatic shift in tone. Their messages conveyed a profound sense of resignation, a stark acknowledgement that they were no longer capable of effectively challenging or contesting the overwhelming might of American air power. The relentless strain of protracted warfare had led to the catastrophic collapse of Japanese pilot training programs, resulting in newly minted aviators being rushed into the maelstrom of combat with a mere 100 hours of flight time, a shockingly inadequate preparation. In stark contrast, seasoned American pilots, exemplified by aces such as McCampbell, boasted thousands of hours of invaluable experience. This burgeoning qualitative disparity was, by all accounts, utterly unbridgeable. Compounding this, the quantitative chasm, with American industrial power churning out aircraft at a prodigious rate that Japan's wartime economy simply could not hope to emulate, rendered the ultimate outcome of the air war an inescapable certainty. The venerable F6F Hellcat continued its valiant service on the front lines of the Pacific Theater until the very conclusion of the war, a testament to its robust design and combat effectiveness. Eventually, it yielded its premier position to newer, swifter aircraft, such as the F8F Bearcat, and the nascent generation of jet-powered fighters. Nevertheless, throughout its critical operational tenure from 1943 to 1945, the Hellcat proved itself an unparalleled instrument of aerial supremacy, accounting for the destruction of approximately 5,200 enemy aircraft. Remarkably, this astounding tally was achieved while suffering the loss of only about 270 Hellcats in direct air-to-air engagements. This resulted in an extraordinary kill ratio of 19:1, a truly unprecedented figure. Crucially, this remarkable success rate was not solely attributable to a select few elite aviators. It was consistently maintained across the entire spectrum of pilot skill levels, encompassing legendary aces like McCampbell, as well as green recruits embarking on their very first combat sorties. In essence, the F6F Hellcat possessed an inherent design excellence that elevated average pilots to a higher level of proficiency and transformed already good pilots into truly exceptional aerial combatants. Even in the contemporary era, the profound influence of McCampbell's combat exploits continues to resonate within the rigorous curriculum of the Naval Fighter Weapons School, universally recognized by its popular moniker, Top Gun. There, aspiring modern fighter pilots meticulously dissect his tactical decisions, scrutinizing every maneuver and choice. His pioneering energy management techniques, fundamental to superior air combat, are not merely historical footnotes, but remain actively taught and rigorously practiced. The foundational principles he so masterfully applied amidst the chaos of 1944 have proven to possess an enduring relevance, remaining entirely pertinent to the intricate dynamics of modern air combat. Despite the dramatic and revolutionary advancements in aircraft design and weapon systems, certain immutable truths persist. Maintaining superior altitude invariably translates into greater energy potential. This available energy, in turn, critically dictates the range and variety of engagement options a pilot possesses, and, fundamentally, disciplined and precise fire control invariably maximizes the effectiveness of precious ammunition. These core truths, forged in the crucible of early aerial warfare, demonstrably transcend mere technological evolution, serving as eternal cornerstones of air superiority. Ultimately, the profound and multifaceted legacy of David McCampbell extends far beyond the impressive numerical tally of his 34 confirmed aerial victories or the singular honor of his Medal of Honor. His true measure lies in the exemplary manner in which he personified the unwavering professionalism and the superlative skill that became the defining hallmarks of American naval aviation throughout the entirety of World War II. Indeed, his legendary mission on October 24th stands as a monumental achievement, arguably the single greatest individual fighter pilot feat ever recorded in the annals of aviation history. A breathtaking 9 enemy aircraft obliterated in a solitary engagement, all while facing staggering odds of 30-1. Following this crushing defeat, the Imperial Japanese forces, having learned a most bitter lesson, never again harbored any illusions or underestimated the fearsome capabilities of the F6F Hellcat or the exceptional prowess of its American pilots.